So I've got to make a project, keep everything organized. So I'm going to go project window, cubes on the desktop, new project. Let's call this run cycle. And then I have to go, let's make a ground plane. There we go. So I got a nice big ground plane. Then I can turn off the grid. I don't need it. Now I need to go grab a rig. So I'll go back to course materials, go to rigs and simple. And there's Norman. I'm going to grab Norman. So with the Norman rig, I'm just going to grab the rig. There are other things you could grab, but you don't need these scripts. They're not important for this one. So I'm just going to grab that file, go to my project folder, run cycle, and I'm going to go put the rig in the scenes file. Now, if your rig had textures, so if you need them, you throw them in source images. So now I'm going to go Control R, which is the keyboard shortcut for create reference. You can also go to the file menu and go create reference from there. And I'm going to reference in Norman. Okay. So with the Norman rig, again, a lot of visibility issues at the beginning have to be solved by using these controls down here. With Norman, you have a tab that allows you to turn on and off parts of the rig. So if you wanted to hide geometry, you can. And down here, the control visibility, there's this first bunch of controls are important. I'm going to turn them all on, but I'm not going to animate the face. So the facial controls, I'm going to just zero that out, leave them be. All right. And once I set this up, I don't want to key these controls anymore. So I usually put them on their own display layer and then just hide them. So these are just control. So that way I'm not going to key that all the time and accidentally have those things popping on and off if I change them. Now Norman, when you grab Norman right out of the box, the feet are not set up right. They're in FK. So you need to make sure you can change the feet to IK by going to the extra controls here and then toggle this tab. So now we have IK, got IK feet. For the arms, I would really recommend FK because FK gives you arcs for free, right? That's the nice thing about FK. You get an arc for free because it's a rotation. Don't animate in IK because then what happens is you have a pose over here and a pose over here, and the computer will move the arm in a straight line. It will not go front to back. It will not rotate. It will just do a straight line. And then you have to manually put that on an arc the entire time. So it's very frustrating. But if you start with this, you can very easily get front and back rotation really quickly. Now, a few things with setup. I'm working in gimbal mode because I want to see what happens when I move a rotation. And you can see one thing that happens here. When I'm looking at this, I can see that, well, Z is the biggest thing I'm going to rotate. I'm going to rotate Z a lot more than I'm going to rotate X or Y. And it seems like I'm not getting into too big of a gimbal issue. The only area where I might get some trouble is here. If these cross, I have no way to have the arm go out to the side of the body, right? So that's a bit annoying. So I'm going to change that. I'm going to go to the attribute editor. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab that control and I'm going to play around with the rotate order. I think that the most important thing should be Z. And right now, the most important thing is Y. So if I look at the options, there are two choices that have Z at the end. So it's either this one, right? Or I'm going to choose this one. So I'm already with this one and that doesn't work. So I'm going to say, well, let's find one where Z is at the end. Let's try that one and see what happens. You can see that that's not exactly perfect. Let's just zero that out and see what happens. If I rotate down, okay, so I think it was this one. This one seems to be behaving properly. So this one for me is XZY. So I'll just go do the same thing with this one. XZY. And move it down and do a little test. With Norman, always forget I got to go to the rig and flip some of the normals, right? That's why half the body is sort of inside out in terms of which surface it thinks is going to get light. I'm just going to turn on two-sided lighting and just ignore the problem, so it'll just look like it's supposed to. So I've got the arms figured out. With the arms, we've got the clavicles. So you can see right now, this is what I told you. I don't want this. I really don't want to use this and have the arm pull away from the body. So if I go here to the top joint, I can go in here and say, what's the parent, right? So if I wanted to, I can take the arms out of the rig by choosing, instead of the parent being set to 1, the world being set to 1. So now this arm is independent, right? So the only rotation it will get is from itself. It will not receive any rotation from the rest of the rig. So it's basically isolated. So I'll do the same thing here. And make that one. If I grab the chest and turn, you can see that the head moves. So again, I've got to go and set the options there. Make sure that this is set to world, so that when I rotate the chest, head stays in place. All right. Now let me just turn on the wireframe on shaded, because I know, Dong-hee, you were asking this question about the rotation, right, on the body, and I was talking about the different controls. So you look here and you can see that Norman is a bit unique. And again, this is a bit frustrating. What rotation is this? X. Okay, and then go to one of the spine controls, and what rotation is it? Right, it's Z. So it's like, this is the stuff that can drive you crazy because you don't know, right? And you go select everything, you just want to bend the character, and all of a sudden it just twists like a pretzel in like 4 different directions. You're like, what the hell happened? So with Norman, I'm aware of this, right? So I would not just grab the hip and the chest, because if I try and rotate them together, right, I get this, which is not what I want. But if I was to grab this, these chains here, right, that lets me curve the spine forward and back, right? So I can shape the spine. The chest controls are not all created equal. Look at that. That does not move the rib cage. It twists the upper chest, and we get a lot of tearing. So I wouldn't use this for rotation. This one, that moves the whole chest as a block. So that's good. The downside is it does not move the abdomen. The abdomen stays completely straight. So I can go here and say, what if I use this one? Okay, so that's good, right? It moves the entire block. But then what I would probably do is maybe animate this one first, and then I would use this one to sort of push the chest a little bit further, maybe do a little bit of a lean, right? So you have to kind of test things and see. So it's a choice between this one and this one. I might go with the lower one. And then this one is the lower spine, right? So this you could use to rotate the entire trunk of the body. So what you have to always remember is, because it's a chain, if I move this, then I have to move this to counter it, right? So if I want to do a twist, I will then have these two fighting each other. All right, so you kind of do a little bit of testing and see what's going to work. And if I wanted to, I could grab all 3 and I could just rotate like that and sort of start with just some extremes and say, well, I'm going to twist this way, I'm going to twist that way. But I also have to see how that will connect to the hip, right? So if the hip twists this way and the abdomen, right, or the lower spine doesn't follow it, right, it feels a bit weird. It feels like it's left behind. So with this rig, it's very segmented, so you can get away with a little bit of that. But with a rig that's fully weighted, you're going to have a lot of tearing. So it's important when you have a rig with textures, you turn them on and do some tests. With Norman, the other thing I would change is where the knee pole vectors are. They're way up here at the hips, which I hate, right? I want to be able to point the knees, right? And I would prefer them to be at around knee height, because that's where the knees are. So if I'm going to have the character bending, I want to see what happens, right? I want to make sure the knees don't twist in the wrong direction, that they feel broken. All right, so I'm just going to move that up. Now, again, these also have parenting options. So I think right now, if I grab the hip, it moves the knees. That's probably not what you want, because you might want to have the body twist, but the legs still point forward. So again, you grab these controls and look and see if there are any options. And here we have this local versus world. So I'll just turn that up to 1. And now when I rotate the hip, they stay put. Right, so now I don't have to worry about them. They're going to just stay out there out front. And if I need to move them, then I'll move them. All right. So now I've got my character set up. I'm just going to save my scene.